Hey everyone, Meinke here from MLive.com. Joined by Justin Rogers. Lions are off to a fast start, Justin. 3-1. We've hit the quarter post of the season, and seems like a good time to talk about our impressions from the first quarter. Who's been your MVP on defense?
Let's crown him. I'm going to go a little out of the box here. You know, a lot of guys have played really well, obviously. Defensive line's been fantastic. But a guy I look at is cornerback Rashean Mathis. You know, he's been so steady in coverage. He's often covered the top guy on the team. Not only that, he's really helped groom Darius Slay into the player he's become. You know, he won't take credit for it, but he's really helped Slay advance in his technique. And, you know, Mathis Island is a real thing this year. He's just not letting up any targets. Or completions on his targets. He's been fabulous. He's 34 years old, and he just keeps defying his age.
I think if you include off-field factors and locker room and all that stuff, you do have to go with Mathis just because of that mentorship factor he has going on with Darius Slay. His maturation's been really incredible. But if you just include, if you're just talking about on-field performance, for me, the defensive MVP has to be DeAndre Levy. To me, he's been just flat out amazing. I mean, really for a year plus now, but you know, just playing at a Pro Bowl level. And it seems like no matter what happens to the defense, this guy just continues to produce and play well. You know, he's got Stephen Tulloch going down next to him, and he still steps up last week against the Jets and plays phenomenally. We see him tackling guys in the backfield for safeties, and we see him in coverage, and it's just pretty incredible what this guy can do, you know, in all facets of the defensive game.
And we're even ignoring a guy like Ndamukong Suh, who has continued to be dominant.
And Nick Fairley, he's played exceptionally well too. I just think Levy's provided a little bit more, and I like your pick of Mathis is on point as well. I mean, it's the number 2 secondary right now in all of football. With all the injuries, that's pretty incredible.
For sure.
Offensive MVP.
Golden Tate, and you know, probably would have been Calvin Johnson again. It's always such an easy answer, but you know, Johnson was banged up, didn't do much, and Tate steps up, and he's been so consistent. He's been everything that the Lions thought he would be. He catches passes, but he does so much damage after the catch. He's a new safety valve for Matthew Stafford, and I think is what really is making this offense click early as it kind of works through some other struggles. I
have to agree with you. You know, as boring as that is, but to me, Golden Tate's been the most consistent guy. You know, Calvin's had some great games, obviously. Matthew Stafford's had one really good game and one pretty good game against the Jets last week. There's a lot of guys who've had their moments, but Golden Tate just shows up every day and plays. And if you look at the targets too, that's the kind of the interesting thing with him is if he has 6 catches, he probably has 7 or 8 targets. He catches everything that's thrown at him. Does he have a drop this year?
No, they didn't. They didn't give him credit for the quick pass the other day that hit his hands.
So he just catches everything, and then you know we've talked about it a lot, but the yards after catch, that little spin move he does with his back to the defender, it works every time. And then what you saw with the Jets in the Jets game, and I forget who the defender was, but it was on that catch near the goal line, and he turned around and the defender expects him to do that little spin thing, gets him on his heels or whatever it was, and just ran right through him.
Puts the shoulder down, and he's not a big guy. I mean, he's not much bigger than me, but. To you know, and
he's a little bigger,
a little bigger, but you know, to put the shoulder down and run with that physical style and be able to do it is just such an added benefit to Stafford's arsenal.
We're trying to keep this to players only, but if we're giving out MVPs, I do want to mention Teryl Austin. I just tip my hat to him. That's the way I've put it this week, and everything the defense has incurred with the 4 nickelbacks going down, and we forget about Chris Houston sometimes because that happened in the offseason, but losing Chris Houston, a projected starter, playing the first 3 weeks without James Ahedibo, the one real notable guy they added to the defense in the offseason, and to still produce as the Lions have, and not just produce but excel. Number 1 ranked defense. You know, we saw the unique game planning last week against the Jets with the 2 nickel packages to account for all the injuries at nickel. This guy gets creative. He's aggressive, but not too aggressive. I just can't say enough about how good of a start he's had to his Detroit career.
It's not the losses they've had to overcome. It's how they've overcome them, and it's the players they've groomed to step into these roles, whether it's Tahir Whitehead, Issa Abdul-Qudus. You know, these players from training camp on were given practice reps like they were going to be starters, and so when they had to step in, they've been ready and they performed well above expectations, at least, you know, outside expectations. They all say that this is what they expected, but you know, we didn't. I don't think most of you guys did, and you know, now they're the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL. So absolutely, and in a lot of ways Mayhew deserves a lot of credit too. You know, he did have a hand in picking this head coach Jim Caldwell, which trickles down to the coordinators and all that. And then they made Tate the number one target for a reason. So the guys we're mentioning all at some level come from Mayhew's decision making. We hit him a lot for a lot of the mistakes over the years, but he really hit some high notes so far this offseason.
One MVP move, if you will, from Caldwell too that we've kind of overlooked, I think, is just the way he handled Nick Fairley in the preseason. It happened so long ago now that I think has kind of gone unnoticed a little bit. But Nick Fairley has played exceptionally well, consistent presence on the defensive line, consistent pressure. I'm not sure if that happens if he doesn't bench Nick Fairley in the preseason, gets his weight in order, makes him lose 20 pounds or so. He hired a cook after that whole thing. I mean, that was a real wake-up call. I mean, you can talk about wake-up calls and the coach speak and the platitudes and all that, but there was action from Nick Fairley, and you have to like that from a guy who hasn't taken a lot of action, proactive action earlier in his career, and hiring the chef and getting his weight in order. He's providing better effort in practice every day, and you've seen now a better player. He's playing his best ball since coming here, consistently.
That is the number one example of accountability, but accountability reigns supreme in this building now. They're one of the least penalized teams in football. They're closing out games. They're limiting their mistakes. And you talk to the players and they say from day one he's come into the meeting rooms and he's emphasized not shooting ourselves in the foot. He's given us examples of how we've shot ourselves in the foot in the past, and we work on those specific instances so we don't do it in the future. And you're seeing, it's early, but you're seeing those results on the field.
Yeah, I actually asked Reggie Bush, because the Lions the past 2 weeks have closed out games methodically with the run game. Even if the run game's not working the first three quarters, they somehow they're closing these games out and making it look pretty easy. And I told Bush, like, you guys make it look mechanical. You guys make it look actually kind of easy. He just laughed at me. He said, no, it's not easy. But those are games that the Lions would make interesting in the past, or maybe even lose. The Lions, they're just, that 6-minute plus drive against the Packers was a thing of beauty to close out that game.
Dominic Raiola said it's humbling being able to take a knee at the end of three games, 3 wins this season. He said so often, and I mean, of anybody he knows, the most about it, so often they're on the other side of that watching the opponents take the knee. So He said it's an experience. He said there's joy, elation, happiness in the huddle, but it's just a humbling experience to know you're finishing these games out strong. I
mean, he's played a lot of years here in Detroit, so he knows the other side of it well, and certainly there's a lot to like, I think, from the way the Lions have made those finishes uninteresting, in a winning way. That's what we got. Lots of like from the Lions start, 3-1, heading into a matchup this weekend back home against the Buffalo Bills. For Justin Rogers, I'm Kyle Meinke. We are MLive. Keep it right here.